This is another episode of Drinking and Drafting. This was an 8-man Return to Ravnica draft filmed on January 16th, 2013. So pack 1, right out the top, you can see, pull out the token and land, the rare Supreme Verdict, which is pretty strong. Other noticeables, Augur Spree, Street Spasm, Common Bond, Tenement Crasher. Obviously, I'm looking at Supreme Verdict and Street Spasm, but I'd go ahead and take the Supreme Verdict. I'm always a fan of those kinds of effects at low costs. In this pack, I've got Fencing Ace, a Stab Wound, Inspiration, Trestle Troll, Transguild Promenade. Also have an Azorius Keyrune and the Sunspire Griffin. Obviously several good choices in here. Because I picked up the Supreme Verdict, white's a good choice, so I went with the Sunspire Griffin. This pack got a Temple Garden, Tower Drake, Selesnya Guildgate, Rootborn Defenses, Mizium Skin, another Transguild Promenade. We rare redraft, so the Temple Garden land isn't as important as if we were doing a normal draft. So I go ahead and take the Tower Drake. He's a decent, since I'm in white, he's a decent blocker, and evasion's always good. On this pack, Follow the Gavel, Psychic Spiral, Cremate, Concordia Pegasus. This pack, Void Wielder is what stands out right away. I'm always a fan of those effects, so I go ahead and slam him. He's a pretty highly valued common in my opinion, just because of that effect. This pack, not very good. Stealer Secrets. Hussar Patrol is obviously the strongest, so I take that. This pack, Dramatic Rescue, is another card I'm always happy to play. I'm more than happy to have a couple. It's got Chorus of Might and some other stuff, but Dramatic Rescue is the best in that pack. Downsize, Doorkeeper, Stonefair Crocodile. Just some other mixed stuff. And Is It Keyrune? I go ahead and take the Keyrune in case I decide to splash red for any kind of direct damage or removal. That way I go ahead and have it. In this pack, Rootborn Defenses, Golgari Longlegs, just some mixed stuff. This pack, as you can still see, white and blue are fairly open. So I've actually got some really good late picks. Inspiration, the Guildgate, some other options. The Guildgate and Inspiration obviously having different degrees of awesomeness. I go ahead and take the Inspiration. I like to have one piece of that type of card draw on my decks for draft generally. And that pack was unexciting, so I take the Mizium Skin. Same thing with this, Psychic Spiral or Downsize. Really, Psychic Spiral is just a sideboard if you're getting milled. Go ahead and take Mizium Skin, and then just some last big crap like Crosstown Courier. This pack, I forget his name. I think he's Niv Magus Elemental. I've never played him. But right off the bat, you see Azorius Charm, Spiria Skywatch, some other stuff. I just go ahead and slam the Charm. It's just extremely versatile. This pack have Vassal Soul, Centaur Healer, which is just very powerful. Even have the Vidugazi Guild Mage. So Selesnya is fairly open, but this is still an early pack. So I'm just going through my options if I'm sticking with Selesnya or if I want to go ahead and start splashing. Or if I'm sticking with Azorius and want to go ahead and start splashing Selesnya. The Guild Mages, especially her, if you get the mana late enough, are so powerful. I felt like it was hard to sort of pass up that as an option. Again, the Centaur Healer, I could hope that it wheels, but being how popular Selesnya is, probably not. So I go ahead and take the Guild Mage and pass. I have an Eyes in the Skies and Tristani's Judgment, both token creators. Hover Barrier, which is decent, and the artifact I can't remember the name of for some reason. The mana-producing artifact, all your lands can produce mana of any color. But so Eyes in the Skies creates tokens and allows you to populate. Tristani's Judgment allows you to populate and exiles a creature. I need some removal, so I go ahead and take the Tristani's Judgment. Avenging Arrow, Common Bond, Frostburn Weird, Seller of Songbirds, Izzet Staticaster, and a foil Tristani's Judgment. So I like Staticaster, but as I said earlier, I'm kind of at least toying with the idea of splashing Selesnya or splashing Izzet. At this point, I think I only have the Izzet key rune. So, you know, maybe I forgot this early, but I should have just, you know, not even considered the Izzet stuff. Izzet Staticaster is good in a vacuum, but I don't think, you know, I don't think she's as powerful as the Tristani's Judgment or the Common Bond or the Frostburn Weird. I go ahead and go with the Common Bond and go the Selesnya route, at least for a splash. Keening Apparition, Goblin Electromancer, another Staticaster, Conjured Currency, I think it's called. The Keening Apparition is the choice. You know, maybe the Axebane Stag, but obviously he's a bit expensive. He's just a good late game bomb if you don't package with anything else. So I take the Keening Apparition. In this pack, Rubbleback Rhino, Centaur Healer, Azorius Arrestor, Street Sweeper, Rites of Reaping, and the Blood Crypt, the red-black. I go ahead and take the Centaur Healer. As I said earlier, he's just so strong. This pack, Void Wielder, you know, Golgari Decoy is pretty strong, but a second Void Wielder just sounds so good to me, so I go ahead and slam it. Asperia Skywatch, the Detain Unblockable guy, I forget his name, Azorius Arrestor, Gatecreeper Vine, or Gatekeeper Vine, I always forget. I always forget which one it is. A foil basic land, Catacomb Slug. Obviously, this pack's very exciting. I just go ahead and take the flyer. Big, and he detains. That Elemental Wield, again, you have to, if I'm remembering the correct one, you have to exile a spell that you control, like as it's being cast, to put counters on him. I just go ahead and take the Rubbleback Rhino. He's great mid-range, and, you know, he's just a solid creature, hard to remove with that 4-butt. And another Centaur Healer. Go ahead and crack that. Mizium Skin, you know, the rest of the pack isn't interesting at all. Celeros Songbirds or Staticaster are the choices out of this pack. Again, I've gone so strong, and Tristani's Judgment. I've gone so strong, Selesnya. I need token producers, so I go ahead and take that. And it's either Conjure Curries or the Axebane Stag, and I go ahead and take the Stag, and then last pick, the Lifelink Cat. For this pack, the rare is Grove of the Guardian, but as I'm flipping through, I've got a Monitor, a Goblin Electromancer, a Chorus of Might, Tenement Crasher, and some other stuff. I'm on the Selesnya route. I go ahead and take the Grove of the Guardian. That gives me another target for the Guild Mage and any other populate I pick up. This pack's pretty solid too. Dreadbore, Keening Apparition, Frostburn Weird, Sponorix Mahdi, Annihilating Fire, Brush Strider, and the Risen Sanctuary, which is a pretty good late game, you know, a 7-cost 8/8 Vigilance. Depending on, you know, I don't have a lot of, my curve is still relatively low, so I go ahead and take the Risen Sanctuary here. Eyes in the Skies, Knightly Valor, Rest in Peace. I go ahead and take the Knightly Valor. That's an amazing card. Even in a non-Selesnya deck, it's good, but having just yet another populate target is strong. Right out of here, you can see I'm eyeing the Arrest pretty strongly. It's a card I don't come across too frequently, and it's so strong. It gets, you know, it shuts down the Guild Mages. It's so much better than some of the board state removal that's in here. I take a Courses Accord in that case. Again, more populate, more than happy to play those options. In this pack, got a Vassal Soul, an Action Injunction. I just go ahead and take the flyer. Another Dramatic Rescue, another Void Wielder, a Downsize, and some other stuff. I go ahead and at least weigh my options with the Golgari Longlegs, which, since I'm splashing green, is an option. And it's really between the Dramatic Rescue and the Void Wielder. But I just go ahead and take the Dramatic Rescue since I already have 2 Void Wielders. That gives me 2 of each. Just, you know, good solid across the board. The unsummon action just sets up or screws up people's tempo, and the gaining the 2 life could matter. In that pack, I go ahead and take a Syncopate. Could be an early, early or late game counter. In this, I go ahead and take the Ethereal Armor. I'm probably not going to play it based on what I have, but it can be pretty strong in the right deck, and it was the strongest card here. Brush Strider fits my curve a little better than another Rubbleback Rhino. In this pack, Rest in Peace, Slitherhead, and 2 other unexciting cards. I'm not really a fan of Slitherhead. I'll play him if I have to, so I go ahead and take the Rest in Peace just to show people to send the signal I'm not in Golgari, since that's where he really fits in. As usual, these last couple of packs are just extremely uninterested. Usually have no playables, but as you can see in the deck, I've got a fairly good mix, almost evenly split between spells and creatures just because of Populate, but overall, good deck. So that takes us into round 1. I'm playing against Jim. He goes ahead and plays a mountain and passes, again, land and pass, land and pass. I found that most decks, unless you're playing against the fastest Rakdos decks, usually have that. But I play a turn 2 Brush Strider and pass the turn back to him. It obviously looks like he's playing Rakdos at this point, but he could be splashing for something. I never know. That's where a lot of this game 1 stuff, you're usually finding out a lot about your opponent's deck. But he goes ahead and plays a Dagger Drone Imp and passes. I draw my 3rd color. I offer the trade with him. He probably doesn't want to take it this early, especially if he doesn't know I have something like a Common Bond. So I go ahead and pay 3 for a Cellar of Songbird and passes. As you can see, I've developed my board quite a bit, just in 3 turns. He plays the Ogre Jailbreaker and passes. Again, it doesn't seem like he wants to offer up the trade for a bird token. I almost would in his shoes, just because, to prevent Populate from getting off. I go ahead and Dramatic Rescue his Jailbreaker early on, just to screw up tempo and try to race him, get ahead of that curve. I know he's probably not going to trade with the actual Cellar, or not trade, but just chump. He decides to trade with the Brush Strider and takes 2, going down to 18. I then pay 2 for the Guild Mage. Again, talking about trading for the bird, now I have a Guild Mage with a token target that I can activate as soon as next turn to get birds out, depending on what he decides to do. He decides to Annihilating Fire the Guild Mage, which I guess is the correct choice, because then I don't have that cloning engine going off every turn. I go ahead and swing for another 2, taking him down to 16. I'm sorry, taking him down to 13. I forgot about the initial 3. Then I play a Centaur Healer, taking me up to 25. He plays his Ogre Jailbreaker again, likely just to try to stop the ground action with my Centaur Healer and, prevent pinging, because I won't, at least without any tricks, won't want to attack in with my Cellar of Songbird, Cellar of Songbirds, just to lose it. Swing for 1 in the air, taking him down to I then play Courses Accord to play 2 3/3 Centaurs. He plays 10-Man Crasher, the 5/4 with haste, but doesn't swing. Again, swing to 1, taking him down to 12. He's obviously trying to develop his board here. He doesn't want to lose to Populate, that sort of thing. Then he plays the 4/3 that can destroy an artifact, and then passes back to me. I swing in the air for 1 again.
Stranger Things 2.
It's amazing how much damage a little bird token can do sometimes. He then goes to play, I forget what it's called, but it's a +2/+2 enchantment, red, and you can activate it for a blue to give it flying. He doesn't have the blue, so I go ahead and swing for another in the air, taking him down to 10. I then play a Void Wielder, one of the 2 in my deck, to put the guy back in his hand, killing the enchantment, which is why you get such excellent value off that card in Limited. He goes ahead and plays a Sewer Shambler. The 2/1 you can scavenge, and passes the turn back to me. At this point, you know, he could potentially have mana up for something like Launch Party, Electrickery, you know, there could be options. But I think if he had Electrickery, he would have used it already to prevent the... but I go ahead and ping him again and play another Centaur Healer, gaining another 3 life. He goes ahead and plays the Artifact again. I go ahead and Syncopate for 4 since he only has 3 open mana. And he goes ahead and plays 2 to Dreadbore, one of the Centaur tokens. Again, the less populate targets I have, the better in the long run for him. Although at this point in the game, it's looking fairly, you know, not looking too hot for him. So I do an alpha swing with the team. Again, he has no idea what I have in my hand. I have a lot of open mana, and in this kind of deck, you know, could have anything: Tristani's Judgment, Rootborn Defenses. But unfortunately, he just has to sort of bait it down to me, especially when he's at low life totals like he is. So the only thing he doesn't block, I go ahead and Tristani's Judgment, the Tenement Crasher, and then populate the Centaur. So he's not blocking my 3/1 power people, my 3/1 power creatures. But we do make a couple of... We basically trade 1 for 1, but I also took an additional creature and gained an additional creature. So that attack definitely came far ahead in my favor. He goes ahead and just passes the turn. So I have to untap my large row of creatures I've accumulated there, and decide to do another alpha swing. Luckily, you know, I'm not having to play against Druid's Deliverance or any kind of fog just because of his colors. He goes ahead and tries to kill one of my creatures, and I Rootborn Defenses in response. And so I win game 1. Game 2, is it Guildgate? Pass, Forest passed. Again, that's kind of common, at least in most of these drafts, unless you've got like Rakdos Cackler or Dryad Arbor. So he plays a turn 2 Ash Zealot and bashes me for 2, taking me to 18.
And her graveyard hate is good against control.
I do not have a turn 2 drop.
I mean, shit, a 2/2 first strike for haste is like...
Either that, or if I had a Plains and an Island, then he could be walking it into a Azorius Charm, but obviously that's not the case. He plays a Sewer Shambler and bashes me again with the Ash Zealot. I play a 3rd land and Centaur Healer, taking me back up to 19, since the last bash put me to 16. Attacks with Sewer Shambler, I don't want him to scavenge onto Ash Zealot. First Strike is a pretty strong ability. My Centaur Healer is pretty strong.
One thing I like about this app that...
He plays the Viashino Looter, goes ahead and gets rid of his Locust and passes. He does not block my Centaur when I attack. And as you can see, I had to shift around the table a little bit, make sure it stays in view. Play another Centaur Healer. Again, the tempo hit that, like playing a Centaur Healer in Limited, you know, a 3/3 for 3 you'd play anyways, but just being able to get that advantage to recoup that lost life is just pretty sick. He swings with his now scavenged Ash Zealot. Like I said, Ash Zealot is a pretty good scavenge target. I decide to go ahead and double block the Ash Zealot, and he's weighing his odds. He goes to Annihilating Fire, one of the Centaur Healers, and I Rootborn Defenses. So we trade a bunch of cards basically. Luckily, because the Rootborn Defenses, I actually don't lose my healers. It's just he traded 2 cards for my 1 card. Sometimes called a 2 for 1. I go ahead and play Knightly Valor, making him a large Vigilance attacker, and getting a 2/2 Vigilance Knight token as well. Again, as many populate tokens as I can get out early, because things like Rootborn Defenses, unfortunately, I didn't have a populate target at the time, but if I did, that card is just instantly that much more amazing. He's getting, you know, some attacks in with like a Sewer Shambler, but as he knows, I'm gonna swing in with a bunch. He blocks and does an Augur Spree, Unfortunately, I don't have a response for that, so I do lose the larger vigilanted Centaur Healer. Obviously, I still have board advantage. I have one land advantage, but we have similar cards in hand. Similar number, I should say. He plays a Gorehouse Chainwalker. And he... and a Dagger Drone Imp. And passes the turn back to me. The Imp, for example, is one creature that, unfortunately, unless you have Scavenge, isn't that good. But I go ahead and Tristani's Judgment it to populate. And then he blocks to kill one of my tokens, so I just keep the one that actually is a Knight token. The other one was one of those add cards that you'd flip over. He then plays Goblin Rally, so he gets 4 1/1 creatures. He swings at me with a Sewer Shambler. I do not block. I go ahead and swing in. He just decides to chump 1 for 1. I'm okay with that. He basically has a 2/1 and 2 1/1s left. Goblin Rally usually, at least when I'm seeing it in draft, is usually just an attempt to stop the bleeding. He cremates to draw a card. Again, I think he's just trying to dig for answers. He then plays the 4/3 that can destroy an artifact. I go ahead to swing in. Depending on how he blocks, I decide to Common Bond so I don't lose anything. It's a great combat trick, good value. And then I play a Sunspire Griffin. He goes ahead and shows me he has the 5 damage and an explosive impact, so on his turn he wins. It's the danger with getting down to 5. There's a certain life range that, unfortunately, you know, I had played all my Centaur healers, so I couldn't get back up, and I didn't have Dramatic Rescue. You know, could have done that in response to the explosive impact or something. Third turn, play Cellar Songbirds. As you can see, I have all white sources, which can be pretty awkward. I think I kept an opening hand where I had 2 planes. But, you know, just hoping that I get the right sources. Obviously, I'm doing okay. The problem with keeping hands like that is if he's doing okay, then, you know, he could outrace me and just outclass me with the spells and creatures that he plays. So, overall, I'm just hoping that that doesn't happen. Go ahead and swing with the team. It's obvious he's got something. He Annihilating Fires my Keening Apparition. He probably just doesn't... He does have a couple of enchantments. He's probably playing Stab Wound. That's a pretty popular black enchantment in this set. So obviously he doesn't want me to be able to Keening Apparition sacrifice to remove that in response. So the earlier he gets that away, the better. For a second, he was like, "Yeah, I'll just block here," but no, that's a bird token. Bird tokens fly, and they have 1 power and toughness. He decides to swing at me for 4. I'm not gonna. Cellar of Sonbergs is a great chumper, but I'm not at. That's the first damage I've taken this game, so you know, I'm not at low enough life total. I need to worry about that. I go ahead and swing for 1 in the air. And pass the turn back to him. Oh, and by the way, I played a Grove of the Guardian. If you don't know what that land is, you pay 5, tap 2 untapped creatures you control, sacrifice Grove of the Guardian, and you put an 8/8 Vigilant green and white elemental token into play. It goes without saying that that's the best populate target ever. I go to Knightly Valor, my bird token, and he Electricaries it in response, which is obviously the right choice. At least in his situation, because now he's got Locust, Gorehouse Chainwalker, and the 4/3 I can never remember the name of. He then plays Sewer Shambler. It's looking pretty grim for me, but you know, not all is lost. I did draft a Supreme Verdict. As you can see, I didn't pull an island, but I've got Centaur Healer to bring me back up. Pay another 2 for Brush Strider. So I've got some blockers, some things that he'll be forced to trade with, and that sort of thing. He decides to stab wound the Brush Strider, just as a direct kill, and basically he has enough to win, so he wins round 1. This takes me to round 2. I'm playing against Clint this round.
Film the finals. If I don't, then I'll just get my last game. I think. Grizzly Savage. Yeah, it's 5 cards. Right?
Clint goes ahead and Grizzly salvages. Reveal the top 5 cards off your library. You choose a land or a creature card from that. Put it in your hand. Put the rest in your graveyard. In a Golgari deck, which it seems like Clint is playing, this is obviously very powerful, as he's putting whatever in his graveyard are the best or the cheapest scavenge targets, and then putting into his hand whatever he needs to cast the spells that he already drew. So the good thing about that is just the amount of value you get off of it, but the amount of information it doesn't really reveal, because I still have no idea what's in his hand. The fact that he picked a land only means that he might need that color, so he might be splashing red. That's all he's told me. But I don't know what he's splashing red for. I don't know if he has any other lands in his hand. You know, I don't really know much about it. He attacks with a Stonefair Crocodile. I go ahead and Dramatic Rescue to gain 2 life and return it to his hand. He replays it and passes. Turn 4, I decide to do nothing. Go ahead and pass. He goes to attack. I flash in a Hussar Patrol and kill his Stonefair Crocodile. He plays a Dagger Drone Imp on his turn and then passes.
7, 10, 11, swing.
Obviously, Vigilance in Limited is just so powerful. If any of you ever played Avacyn Restored, Seraph of Dawn was just amazing. She didn't have Vigilance, though. I was flying in Lifelink. But these kinds of abilities, they just stack on and affect the game in such interesting ways. Lifelink, Vigilance, First Strike. But I played a Void Wielder, returned the Imp to his hand, then he plays a Gatecreeper Vine and the Imp again. I go ahead and swing with both. Again, one of the good things about Void Wielder and the Hussar Patrol is just their large butt. You can usually swing in without fear of death, just because, you know, they can be blocked by so many things in Limited without fear of dying. Void Wielder is also one of my favorite Knightly Valor targets, as it makes him a 3/6. And then I played a Brush Strider and passed. He attacks with Dagger Drone Imp, which is good. I don't have Dagger Drone Imp. And then he plays a Golgari Longlegs, a pretty popular creature in Return to Ravnica. I see it in pretty much every green draft deck that I play against and I've played. And then I go ahead and play the Mythic Uncommon, Arrest, on the Golgari Longlegs, and swing with the team. He's only got the Gatecreeper Vine back. He decides not to block and takes the rest. And Arrest is just, you know, obviously I want to arrest his biggest guy, and it's a pretty strong limited removal spell. It's, you know, outside of some very interesting situations, it's the same thing. He does Rites of Reaping to +3 his Imp and -3 my Brush Strider, which it actually works excellently with because of Lifelink. That's the type of card you want to pump, you want to scavenge on, because to be honest, if it's just a 1/1 flyer for 2 without it, it's just not as strong. As I mentioned earlier, I like playing Knightly Valor on Void Wielder, so I go ahead and put that on him and swing in with my 2 Vigilance guys. I now have a 3rd Vigilance guy, it's just he had Summoning Sickness that turn. He attacks in with the Imp again. Then plays 5 for Vraska, the Planeswalker, and he goes ahead and minuses her to destroy my Void Wielder, which had Knightly Valor. I go ahead and swing at Vraska. Since she only had 2 counters and he only had 1 blocker, he didn't want to throw away for it anyways. And then I play a Centaur Healer. Basically, I was trying to minimize value he was getting off of Vraska. Usually don't want a Planeswalker around long enough that they can just start, you know, destroying stuff and whatnot. In response to my Alpha attack, he Explosive Impacts, but then I Rootborn Defenses, which luckily, because I had a Populate target, gives me another Knight. He chumps his Great Gatecreeper Vine in response. And as you can see, he's got quite a bit of land. You know, he is spread across 3 colors, but he's got so much in play. He's got 2 cards in hand currently, so and he just played a Sewer Shambler, hits me with an Imp. Again, the Imp is it's like a back and forth. Unfortunately for Clint, he's only a 1/1, but it's one way he can stay alive in the game. He chumps the 3/3 and takes 6.
Tower Drake.
And then I play a Tower Drake and the Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage. Clint's at 4 at this point, so he's pretty much got to top deck some sort of answer. He pays 2 for the Karazda Guildmage, the Golgari Guildmage, and basically he's just trying to find, so he scavenges onto his Imp, for example, who's now a 3/3, so I have to be a little bit more mindful of my attacks. And I decide to attack with those 4, basically the 3/3 and then the 3/3 and the 3 Vigilance guys. Now he uses the Karazda Guildmage's second ability, which allows him to sacrifice a creature, the arrested Longlegs that he had. So he gets 4 1/1 tokens.
You lose 3 but gain 3.
And essentially he's trying to figure out how he's going to do blocks and so forth.
Okay, so you gain 3 and kill.
You know, whether or not he does 1 on each. He ends up doubling up on the Knight token, which destroys 1 of the Knight tokens and he chumps the rest. Unfortunately for me, the Imp has sort of kept him up. He's now at 7 life. He then Augur Sprees the Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage, preventing me from populating every turn, basically. That's the kind of ability that would end his chances in this game completely, because it doesn't matter how he chumps or uses that ability to do anything, he's still gonna, you know. So he blocks 1 of the 2s, the 2/4, which doesn't kill him, and it basically mitigates the damage since, yeah, I go ahead and play a Courser's Accord, though, on the last turn, and get 2 Centaurs, and then, again, I'm swinging in with everything except the Tower Drake. He then has a couple of options. He's, first he pumps up the Imp, and then sacks it, which gives him 4 targets. So he takes 2 and goes to 5.
Immediately killing your guy.
And then I play the Risen Sanctuary, the 8/8 Vigilance. So he's pretty much, he's got to have like an 8/8 Vigilance of his own, and use the Guildmage's ability or something. In this case, he gets the Trestle Troll, the 1/4 defender with Reach and Regenerate. In this case, even if he sacks him, he gets 4. He would still have 3 unblocked. He'd have to block with a Guildmage, and that would still put him within lethal range, basically. Considering the amount of creatures, he needs like a board wipe, or, you know, in this case, obviously, he's going to pump up and then do 5 different blocks.
Damn it.
He's sort of counting to make sure that, you know, he has enough. Because basically, if he has 5, he has enough, and he has to use the Guildmage. And so we do some trades. He goes to 1. I go ahead and pass, and he concedes game 1. He goes ahead and lets me play. We're both playing relatively slow decks, so he decides to give me the choice.
Go ahead.
Oh, you guys play with the timer though, right?
And again, very very unexciting early turns for us. He goes ahead and passes back to me. I play Grove of the Guardian. And pass back. He Grizzly salvages, but I go ahead and syncopate that. I don't want to give him the... I syncopate for 1. I don't want to give him the card advantage or anything. It's actually pretty good against me just because of how he sets up his tempo. I want to screw up his tempo in any way possible, so that I get populate off, so that I can do things like Void Wield on turn 5 and, you know, set up for a fairly straightforward win. He swings at me with Sewer Shambler, taking me down to 18, and then passes back after playing a Stone Fair Crocodile. I play a Centaur Healer, which puts me back up to 21. And now he really, you know, if he attacks with a Crocodile, we're going to trade. If he attacks with a Shambler, then I'm going to take it. Looks like he attacks and offers the trade. I do not take it, so I go back down to 18. He then plays Karazda Monitor, the 3/3 Trampler, which has Scavenge. That's the other thing about Stonefair Crocodile. He doesn't have lifelink, but because you can give him, he's also a great scavenge target. I go ahead and Void Wield his Karazda Monitor and swing in with a Centaur Healer. He doesn't block and goes to 17.
The worst I ever got beaten by Mill was a red-black, like,
and see, now even Sewer Shambler, like, I can profitably block Sewer Shambler with Void Wielder and, you know, come out ahead. He replays the Karazda Monitor and passes back.
Nightly Valor.
I then play Nightly Valor on Void Wielder and swing in with both. Again, Nightly Valor, just a 3/6 is so hard to deal with in this format. Basically, you have to have like direct removal or an arrest or you know, double or triple block depending on what creatures you have. It's pretty interesting. He goes ahead and rots me. I discard Courser's Accord, and I forget what the other card is, but you know, obviously when you have 4 cards in your hand, you just try to discard the least. And at this point, we pass back a couple of turns back and forth. He plays a Terrace Worm. At the end of his turn, I go ahead and Dramatic Rescue.
A 50 mana cost card earlier from like a Minch or something.
50?
No,
And that's for,
I then I go ahead and attack in with both. If you can see, I have enough land that I keep Grove of the Guardian up. But I go ahead and do Rootborn Defenses, so I have extra fodder anyways. It might have been better just to go ahead and Grove of the Guardian, but again, you know, I might make him waste removal, that sort of thing. Some people forget when the land's there, like, you know, the ability or what it takes. He goes ahead and blocks when I go to swing in next turn, offering a trade and me losing one of my creatures, so I go ahead and Tristani's Judgment, which includes Populate. And he's basically at 3 life at this point. Again, it's kind of dire times. He has to come up with options. He plays an Axebane Guardian and go ahead and swing with the team. He extends his hand, and I win round 2. That takes me into round 3 against Steven.
Go ahead. I'm the luckiest person on the
No turn 1 play for Steven, but Steven does play a Gorehouse Chainwalker. He's obviously playing some variant of Rakdos as well. He does Unleash him, so he's a 3/2, can't block. I play Keening Apparition. Obviously, I'm probably going to offer up the trade if he decides he wants to go that route. He also plays a Dead Reveler and then passes the turn. He doesn't want to trade. I go ahead and play a Forest and pass. The Dead Reveler is also unleashed. He plays Deviant Glee on Dead Reveler and goes ahead and stab wounds my Keening Apparition to get rid of it. And then swings for 5/8, taking me down to 12.
I saw myself walking into something.
I then play a 4th land and pass the turn back. These are the kind of decks or the kind of tempo that can really throw slower decks like mine off. Takes me down to 4 life. I go ahead and Void Wield his Dead Reveler, which puts Deviant Glee in his graveyard, and I can block Gorehouse Chainwalker. Him having me down to such low life, and basically a Void Wielder in essence stalling it. He plays Chaos Imps Unleashed, which obviously I now have to deal with or lose the game. I pass the turn back to him. I do remember at this point in the game he was a little bit confused. He's like, "What do you have?" So I go ahead and pay 2 to Dramatic Rescue it to his hand. And he begrudgingly does so. Plays a Guildgate and then replays Chaos Imps Unleashed as he wants to bash in, and it would still be lethal because I'm at 6 at this point. I then play Arrest on his Chaos Imps. I top decked an Arrest. And obviously that completely stops that plan. He then pays 4. He goes to Launch Party. His Chaos Imps to my Void Wielder. I dramatic rescue it in response. So his Chaos Imp still dies, but I don't lose life because the target didn't exist. So I gain 2 and I go to 8. He bashes me at 3, so I go to 5. He then plays Dead Reveler again and passes the turn. And as he knows, I have a Void Wielder in my hand. So the obvious play is I'm going to Void Wield his Dead Reveler back to his hand and basically make it so he can't attack in with the Gorehouse Chainwalker profitably anymore. Then he plays a Rakdos Keyrune and the Dead Reveler again. And passes. I go ahead and play Grove of the Guardian. Tap 5 for Knightly Valor. And do the token. I go ahead and swing in with the Void Wielder. Basically, the only block he could have made was the Rakdos Keyrune, but he would have lost it. He swings in with all 3. I go ahead and offer a chain on Gorehouse Chainwalker and Dead Reveler. But then I Azorius Charm Rakdos Keyrune back onto his library. Basically, we just offer trades on the Gorehouse Chainwalker and the token. Neither the Void Wielder or the Dead Reveler die. His Dead Reveler has a 4-butt. My guy has a 6-butt, and they bounce off of each other. I go ahead and swing in for 3. As I noticed, I pretty much always do with this card when I have it like this. I then play the Vitu-Ghazi Guildmage, and he goes to swing in with both. I offer the trades there, and then I Rootborn Defenses. Unfortunately, no Populate token, but you know, I will try to save that Guildmage at any possible cost. I just swing in with the 3, and I go ahead and Void Wield his Dead Reveler back to his hand. And as you can see, I have the creatures and the mana now. I can activate Grove of the Guardian. I'm mainly trying to set up his tempo or, you know, that sort of thing differently. He plays a Slitherhead and passes back. I'm basically doing the math and, you know, making sure that I can't easily lose it, but I go ahead and swing in for an extra 3 and just pass back the turn. At this point, I have, you know, I have enough to activate a Centaur population, or I can do the, in this case, I'm doing, at the end of his turn, the Grove of the Guardian to make an 8/8 token.
Is this game 1? Yes.
Oh, and that token does have Vigilance, if I'm not mistaken.
What is that? What do you...
Either way, it's extremely hard to deal with. So I go ahead and swing in with the 8/8 and the 3/6 Void Wielder. He blocks the 8/8 with a Slitherhead, and he concedes game 1 from there, as now he knows I can populate. Game 2, he chooses to go first, as most Rakdos or any aggro deck really chooses to. He plays a turn 1 Slitherhead, pings me for 1, go to 19. He then plays the Drain Pipe Vermin. It's a 1/1 rat that if it dies, he can pay 1 black and basically force me to discard a card. Swings at 2, I go to 17. He then plays the Vioshino guy, and I choose to Syncopate for 1. Basically, I'm just, you know, again, just trying to screw up his tempo. I don't need him to develop his board quicker than me. Play Centaur Healer, go back to 20, and pass. And in this case, you know, obviously, he's probably going to offer the trade with the, you know, Slitherhead he wants in his graveyard, and the Drain Pipe Vermin forces me to discard a card, so... unfortunately, with this many cards in my hand, it's not really that powerful because I'm just going to discard the least useful card in my hand. And then I play a Cellar of Songbirds and pass. And he passes back to me. I then swing in with all 3 because I realize he doesn't really have a profitable attack. He's just chumping. He does force me to discard a card. In this case, like I said, it's a forest. I don't really need the extra land. and
You mean, go ahead.
play Keening Apparition and the Guild Mage, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of no, another Centaur here, Centaur healer. So, and then I swing in with the team and play a Guild Mage. He plays the Thrill Kill Assassin, not unleashed, and he also plays the Blood Fray Giant, the 4/3 trample. Again, not unleashed. He needs to be able to block my giant army so he doesn't lose this game. I then Tristani's Judgment his Blood Fray Giant and win round 3. Thanks for watching.